AngularJS allows you to show and hide elements using either the ng-show directive or the ng-hide directive. In many ways, these two directives are redundant since they accomplish the same task, which is to show or hide elements from the document object model and therefore from the user. Using these directives, Angular will automatically set their associated element to display equals none, while keeping the element within the document object model. In this video, we will demonstrate how to use ng-show and ng-hide to show and hide elements. So I have an overview of the setup. I have an application module called myApp, which is attached to the HTML file. And I have a defined controller, and I'm using the view model syntax because I'm using controller as for my controller format. The first thing I'm going to do is create a variable off of my application file called showFirstItem, and I'm going to default it to true. Next, I'm going to create in my index.html a toggle that is part of a radio button, and this radio button is bound to my showFirstItem, and it has a value of either true or false. Finally, I'm going to create a div tag underneath my toggle controls that uses the ng-show directive and is data bound to main.showFirstItem, which will be toggled true or false depending on the radio input value. And as you can see, when I toggle the radio button to false, it changes the underlying data main.showFirstItem to false, and in turn, the div tag that is the first item gets hidden from the document object model. Similarly, we can use a call to a method rather than a direct call. So I'm going to create a second input radio group that is bound to a value called main.second, showSecondItem. And that is going to default to false. But I'm also going to create a method that checks that variable and just returns it, just to show you that you can actually access showHideItem using methods rather than a data variable. So in this case, I'm going to bind to main is second item showing, which is a method rather than a variable. And when I run this, again, this second item can be shown or hidden based on the radio button. What's nice about this is, in this example, number 13, line 13 is pretty simple, but you could perform complex logic to determine whether or not the second element should be shown or not. The final thing I will do is show an example of hiding items using ng-hide. So in this third example, I'm going to add to my view model hide third item as a variable value that defaults to showing true. And then I'm going to create some toggles for that as well. And those toggles are bound to main.hideThirdItem and have values of true or false. And then finally, I am going to, rather than use the ng-show directive, I will use the ng-hide directive and bind it to hideThirdItem. Now if I run it, ng-hide works exactly opposite ng-show. So the ng-shows, if the values are true, it shows. If the ng-hide is true, it hides the item. If it's false, it shows the third item. And so that's a description of how to show and hide elements within AngularJS.